Canada has challenges around productivity. That's a complex issue. One of the factors, though, is the rate or the level at which our companies in Canada adopt new technologies.
Hey folks, Flo here with Blockchain North, Elevate 2024. I'm here with Claudia Krywiak, who I know from a previous life, so I'm very excited to see her again now as the founder and the CEO of Blockchain North. Claudia, why don't you introduce yourself in 30 seconds or less? Kind of like who you are, what do you do?
I'm the CEO of the Ontario Centre of Innovation, OCI, and at OCI we work with innovators and entrepreneurs to accelerate the development of the next generation of advanced technologies such as AI, blockchain, quantum, etc. So it's an exciting space to be in because we get to see the technologies as they're coming out at the leading and bleeding edge, and we have the privilege of working with many talented entrepreneurs and innovators and researchers across the province of Ontario.
And OCI is public, private, is it a hybrid?
So we are an independent not-for-profit organization. We are funded by primarily the Government of Ontario, the Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, and we're very grateful for that support. But we work at that intersection of industry, government, and academia. So for every government dollar that we deploy, industry partners, private sector investors typically match that dollar with $1, $2, or $3.
As you will have it, questions are arising based on what you already said. So if you'll allow me, what part of the Ontario government's mandate do you help fulfill? Because I don't think people automatically think of, especially blockchain and then government being necessarily aligned.
So innovation.
Right.
The Ontario government and also the government of Canada have very strong innovation mandates and policies. And we partner with government on the development and the deployment of innovation programs that actually support those policies. And blockchain is at the leading edge of innovation. It's also a critical industrial technology that's seeing new applications, and so it fits right in there in terms of technology development, and technology development from the perspective of technology development that's going to drive economic prosperity, that's going to lead to incremental sales for companies, that's going to lead to job creation, and that's going to lead to overall economic growth. I'm
not sure you realize how nice it is to hear this from an independent media focused on the blockchain or crypto space, since it is also how it is known, from someone who in some ways represents, a government. I mean, that is fantastic to hear, and really happy, and hopefully we can collaborate in the future. Can you tell us a little bit about those programs? Like, what kind of programs are there? Are you funding? Do you organize events? Do you facilitate? Sure. I guess you're kind of a bridge between, like you said, those three stakeholders.
Yes, exactly. So we do several things. One, we have programs that provide grant funding for industry academic collaborations. So if you have an Ontario-based company, it could be a startup company, it could be a small or medium-sized company that is developing or commercializing some type of new technology, we can support collaborative R&D that company would want to do in partnership with researchers at an Ontario university.
Support meaning college. Potentially dollars?
Dollars, yes.
Resources?
Support, dollars, so grant funding. So for example, the Collaborate to Commercialize program, that program helps companies access the expertise in Ontario's research institutions, and it provides grant funding for research projects that those companies do in partnership with those institutions. The funding that's available is up to $150,000 Canadian.
Okay.
But there is a requirement that the industry partner matches at least 1-to-1. So if the company's applying for $150,000, the expectation would be that they would match that, and that would be a $300,000 project that would take place at an academic institution. The project would be industry-led. The company would define the type of project that was being developed. And I can give you an example.
I was going to ask.
Of a company that, a blockchain application.
Okay.
So there's a company called Switch. They're doing quite well. They're in the EV charging infrastructure space. And several years ago, they had a partnership through the Commercialize to Collaborate program where they partnered with the University of Waterloo on a blockchain grid-based EV charging technology.
Wow, that is fantastic, and I'd never heard of it, so you've just taught me something about blockchain.
But it kind of just demonstrates, because that program enables companies to access very deep domain research expertise in an academic institution.
Right, that would be very costly too.
That would be very costly. They don't have access to that expertise themselves. Right. The academic institution benefits as well, because the researchers get to work on a very interesting research program that has a real world application. So that's kind of one example of what we do, and so we provide funding for collaborative R&D projects. We also do have a couple of co-investment funds. So this is now not grant funding. Here we use financial instruments where we provide seed financing to startup companies, as well as companies that are spin-off companies that are commercializing some kind of IP. Typically that's developed in an academic institution, or these are campus entrepreneurs. There we provide anywhere from $250,000 in investment up to $500,000 in investment, depending on the investment fund. But these are syndicated investments. We only co-invest if there are private sector investors at the table. So at that early stage, this is typically pre-seed and seed stage, we co-invest with angel investors, and these would be the angel investors and the angel groups that are local in Ontario.
Which holds a lot of potential, I guess, for a like, let's say, somewhat public institution to co-invest. I mean, that offers a lot of insurance for those private investors.
Because our role really is, at the early stage, we want to de-risk the opportunity for private sector investors, whether that's helping to de-risk the technology, because it's a new and emerging technology and it's at a very, very early stage, or also de-risk the overall commercialization opportunity by providing some seed financing that then catalyzes private sectors to put in funding as well.
That is all fantastic, and I can see lots of ways in which we should probably talk offline after this interview as well. So what prompted me to interview you, other than, hey, I know Claudia, I've met her before, it'd be nice to meet again, was that I noticed on your website when I immediately searched OCI blockchain that you have an initiative called Critical Technologies Initiative, which, to simplify it, is about helping industries in Canada, all sorts of industries, adopt technologies like AI, like blockchain, like quantum. And it's, correct me if I'm wrong, $50 million initiative?
Yes. So this is a new initiative. It's Critical Industrial Technologies, CIT for short. It was announced by the Ontario government last year. The funding provided by the government is $50 million. And you're right. The focus is on technologies that are going to be critical to industry. So technologies like AI and machine learning, technologies like robotics, cybersecurity, blockchain, etc. And the funding and the initiative is intended to drive the development, the deployment, and the adoption of those technologies in 4 key sectors: advanced manufacturing, agri-food, construction, and mining. And
all major pillars of the Canadian economy.
Very major pillars of the Canadian economy. And also what we're seeing actually happening in those sectors, we're actually seeing the convergence of technology and those sectors to actually create new opportunities. And to go back to blockchain, we're actually seeing quite a few applications for blockchain within those sectors. And the applications are related to the transparency, the traceability, and the security of supply chains. So whether we're talking about supply chains in the agri-food sector and how do you get something from farm to table and how do you maintain the security and the traceability of that item, or whether we're talking about, for example, the mining sector and the integrity of supply chains related to steel, for example. So lots of applications across those sectors for blockchain related to energy, agri-food, steel, as just a few examples.
So interesting to hear this. And post-pandemic, when you say supply chains, I can't help but think about the issues, or let's say the challenges that were raised around, why does a country like Canada, G8 country, advanced economy, have basically gaps in its supply chains, because we don't always have all the technologies, in-house, and we have to import them from famously China, but all over the world. So how much of this initiative is about sort of strengthening, I guess, Ontario, Canada, and ensuring that its supply chain is, up to date, I suppose?
That is certainly a very important component of the initiative. So post-COVID, the reshoring of supply chains to ensure the integrity and security of supply chains, if something like that were to happen again, or if we would encounter another type of situation of that scale.
Yeah.
And one of the things that not just this Critical Industrial Technologies Initiative focuses on, but the focus of OCI's programming is really the investment in the development of technologies that are developed in Ontario by companies that are based in Ontario. We want Ontario to become a global hub of excellence for technology development in these emerging areas, whether it is AI, machine learning, quantum computing, blockchain, etc. And then we want to develop the applications that are based on those technologies and then export those applications to the world. And an important part of that is actually the adoption of those technologies by our industries. And the CIT program focuses on those really important industries to our economy, like agri-food, like mining, like advanced manufacturing, and also I mentioned construction. And construction is a very key sector, especially given the challenges that Canada is actually facing, and actually countries around the world, related to housing and related to affordable housing specifically.
Does that mean that this program also tries to address a real weakness that Canada has in terms of competitiveness, in terms of adopting technologies? I mean, we do hear that quite often, but I don't know how much it's fact-based or how much you witness that yourself.
I think what the program tries to do is leverage where we see potential to actually unlock the opportunity that exists here. Canada has challenges around productivity when we compare ourselves to our neighbors to the south. That's a complex issue. One of the factors, though, is the rate at which, or the level at which our companies in Canada adopt new technologies. And our economy is largely based off of small and medium-sized companies. And those companies face significant barriers to adopting new technologies, especially in certain sectors. So the CIT initiative is designed to actually help drive adoption of those technologies in those sectors and help SMEs help those SMEs adopt those technologies and thereby address the productivity issue. There's another program that I do want to mention that's outside of CIT. It's called the Digitalization Competence Center, DCC, and that really focuses on helping SMEs, small and medium-sized companies in Ontario, adopt new digital technologies. Because when we talk about the adoption of advanced technologies, of technologies like AI, of technologies like blockchain, etc., if you haven't digitized your operation, you can't even start to think about the adoption of those types of advanced technologies. Right. So programs like DCC are doing great work in terms of helping de-risk the adoption of digital technologies for small and medium-sized companies across the province, across all sectors.
Thanks for the mention. You were just on stage, and one of the things that caught my attention is you said pretty bluntly that Canada still has an issue with basically companies scaling to a certain size and then eventually leaving Canada. What will it take for that to change? Because I've been in Canada for 12 years and I've been hearing this ever since I'm here. We've had, I guess, 1.5 governments since then. But I mean, certainly different, cabinets, different investments and programs, and an national AI strategy, and hopefully one day a national blockchain strategy too. What is your take on that? Having been in this role and you're so connected and you have influence too. So I wonder what you tell people around you.
So, I mean, one of the challenges we have is our neighbor to the south. That is a very, very large market and a huge market opportunity. And we want our companies to access that market opportunity, because in order for them to grow and scale effectively, they need to access the global marketplace. Canada's market itself is just simply too small. And so you will have companies that out of the gate, if the majority of their customer base is in the U.S., for example, or if the majority of their investment is coming from the U.S., that's where they may naturally go. And there will always be a certain level of that happening. But, you know, on stage when I was speaking to Christian from Xanadu, you know, he's a great example of, I think over time, as we get more examples of companies like Xanadu that are actually growing and scaling here. So Christian went from Xanadu, you know, being in 2016 a startup spin-off company to fast forward to today. He's raised over $250 million US. His valuation is $1 billion. He's one of Canada's, I think, 20 or so unicorn companies, so that's not that many. And he's commercializing in a really difficult space, quantum computing, because he's going up against the major players like the IBMs and the Googles of the world, and he's succeeding. And on stage, part of his answer was he's never moving the company to the US. And if we have more examples like that, I think it will be inspirational to the ecosystem. I am very optimistic because I even look at the Toronto ecosystem, for example, and what that looked like 10 years ago. Fast forward to today, the number of companies you have, all the exciting things that are happening in blockchain, in quantum computing, in AI. So I am optimistic that the tide will turn. But realistically, there will always be that movement across the border and globally, because it is a big market. I think the things we can do in Canada to help with that is try to make these companies stickier earlier on. That's why angel investment and VC investment by Canadian angels and VCs at the early stage in these companies is really important, because that helps kind of anchor them here. So even when in follow-on stages they get investment from the US and other markets, they at least have the connection here.
Yeah, we heard a similar message from Harley Finkelstein from Shopify yesterday, who said, I'm never moving. But those examples, as you said, are unfortunately not that many. Hopefully, as we see more, there's kind of a snowball effect.
I actually do think we will see more.
That's great.
Because when we were
certainly
on
in
stage
Toronto, we're seeing a momentum.
Yes. I would say across the Toronto Waterloo corridor, Ottawa, we're definitely seeing some momentum.
I want to ask you my last final two questions, and both about blockchain, because you've been a great sport so far, and you know a lot about blockchain, which is very nice to hear. There is still a bit of a stigma around blockchain. I mean, especially if you call it crypto, or if you call it NFT, or things like that. And of course, the stigma comes from somewhere. It's not, it's not necessarily completely inappropriate, but unfortunately it's a question of the forest and the trees, I suppose, and there's still some fantastic innovation. People forget that Ethereum was born out of University of Waterloo, according to Alex Tapscott, author of Blockchain Revolution with his father, and more recently Web3. He says Ethereum is the single biggest business innovation Canada has ever exported. Unfortunately, we've literally exported it because it left. But bigger, let's say, than RIM, because it's a platform technology. What is your take on that stigma? Because again, you seem, quite adept, quite, informed about blockchain, and you obviously, invest. But is that still an issue? How do we need to look at this?
The way I look at this, not only blockchain, but any emerging technology.
Bleeding edge, as you were saying.
Or bleeding edge. So bleeding edge technologies. What really inspires OCI and other investors is the solution potential of the technology. And what are the challenges that we're facing today? And can this new technology address and help solve some of those challenges? And it's interesting because notwithstanding some of the narrative that you've described around blockchain, there are challenges related to supply chains, related to the traceability, integrity, transparency of supply chains across key sectors for the Canadian economy that actually blockchain as a platform technology can address. And I think if we focus on the potential of the technology to actually address those challenges, I think that will help. We have a lot of entrepreneurs that are doing really great things. OCI has a Mind to Market award, and a couple of years ago, the award went to a company called MavenNet, and MavenNet is a blockchain company. And what MavenNet was doing was working in partnership, and they're currently working in partnership with the Canadian government, related on the traceability of Canadian steel supply chains. And so these are like issues that are important to Canadians to the government. And here is a platform technology that has the potential to help address some of those issues. So I think if we look at, what are the challenges and what are the innovative solutions that can address those challenges, I think it could help shift some of the narrative.
That's a very good point. And I have heard that before, that if we focused more on the solutions rather than on perhaps a new token that we don't need, that will help. And I think the industrial side of blockchain's utility is something that is perhaps not talked enough about. So I'm very happy we're here today. My final question, and I ask all of my interviewees the same question, is given your experience, given what you know about blockchain, but also about Canada, about the economy as a whole, what is your surest prediction about blockchain over the coming years?
One of the things, so I get asked this question in
People
various iterations about different technologies. And one of the things I think I've learned over the last 2 years is something exceptional happened 2 years ago. So OpenAI introduced ChatGPT in October, November of 2022. And in many ways, that was a completely unforeseen event. Overnight, access to AI, specialized AI expertise became democratized. We went from, you had to hire very domain experts who had very intensive expertise in machine learning AI in order to be able to use it, to you and I and our kids being able to use it on our phones overnight. And since then, the pace of and how quickly that technology is being adopted is stunning. So McKinsey a few weeks ago released their Tech Trends 2024, and they label the technologies at what stage they are. Are they at the research stage? Are they at the experimental stage, demonstrating, piloting, scaling? Generative AI is at the top of that list in terms of it is at the scaling stage. It only took 2 years for it to get to the scaling.
It has beaten
stage.
many records, I think, Google and others.
Exactly. So back to your question, I don't know. I really don't know, because we are really living in an extraordinary transformative time where these leading bleeding edge technologies, they have their own potential, but that potential now can be amplified.
So in a way, what you're saying is that it may take some kind of a, how do you call that? Like not a unicorn, but I'm looking for my word. Like some kind of a breakthrough that was unexpected, like ChatGPT, but in the Web3 space or in the blockchain space, for it suddenly to become much more user-friendly and adopted.
Or some kind of application or use case that is going to either get it into hands of everyone or help solve a really critical challenge that we are facing in any one of these sectors, I think. But other than that, it's hard to say.
Can I try to make you say something?
Oh.
You don't have to, of course,
Sure.
but that blockchain is here to stay?
I think that we are seeing blockchain applications every single day across all sectors. And so we're seeing more and more entrepreneurs in that space. So we continue to see innovators innovating.
I love it. I think I succeeded. Thank you very much, Claudia. It was a pleasure speaking with you.